I'm not going to ask you again. You said that you oppose scrapping the filibuster. The question I have is whether or not, and you say you hope that that'll bring the parties together. The question I have is whether or not you're doing it exactly the wrong way. And hear me out on this. If you were to keep the idea that maybe you would vote to kill the filibuster, wouldn't that give Republicans an incentive to actually negotiate, because old Joe Manchin's out there and who knows what he's going to do by taking it off the table? Haven't you empowered Republicans to be obstructionists?
I don't think so, because we have 7 brave Republicans that continue to vote for what they know is right and the facts as they see them, not worrying about the political consequences. I believe there's a lot more of my Republican colleagues and friends that feel the same way. I'm just hoping they are able to rise to the occasion to defend our country and support our country and make sure that we have a democracy for this republic of all the people. I'm just very hopeful that I see good signs. We're doing, Chris, more things than ever before. Give us some time. I know everyone's putting deadlines. Got to be done by this, and this.
But let me ask you the final question, sir. I mean, let's just take the idea of creating a 9/11 commission to investigate the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Republicans blocked that. Senator McConnell, the head of the Republicans in the Senate, says that he's 100% focused on blocking the Biden agenda. Question, aren't you being naive about this continuing talk about bipartisan cooperation?
I'm not being naive. I think he's 100% wrong in trying to block all the good things that we're trying to do for America. We'd a lot better if we had participation, and we're getting participation, but when it comes time to final vote, and I disagree with Leader McConnell on this, the minority leader on this issue, that he puts politics before the policies that I think we need for our country. I'm going to continue to keep working with my bipartisan friends, and hopefully we can get more of them. I can tell you this, in 2013, at that time, Harry Reid, the leader of the majority party, the Democrats, basically the nuclear option, which did away the filibuster on appointments and district and circuit judges. Come back to 2017, then we had Leader McConnell at that time in the majority, and he did away with it for the Supreme Court. So what goes around comes around here. They all understand that, and there were 33 Democrats in 2017 that signed a letter to please save the filibuster and save our democracy. That's what I'm trying to do.
This is Chris Wallace pressing Joe Manchin about his opposition to scrapping the filibuster on the heels of Manchin releasing an op-ed detailing his opposition to the For the People Act. And his opposition to the legislation is very much for the same reason that he opposes ending the filibuster, which is that it's not a bipartisan process and doesn't take into account the voice of the minority. Although what Manchin doesn't seem to be able to comprehend is that the minority right now is in the process of entrenching their own rule and stripping the majority of their power by rigging government in their favor. He always seems to leave that part out. Now, Chris Wallace points out the fact that by virtue of taking the filibuster off the table, Joe Manchin isn't facilitating bipartisanship, he's killing any hopes of it. The fact is that the threat of the filibuster in and of itself was a potent deterrent for Republicans not to just blindly block the entire Democratic agenda. But now that they've been assured by Manchin that the filibuster won't be reformed or eliminated, there's no downside for Republicans to blocking anything and everything. Does the guy really think that Republicans are going to care that Joe Manchin is profoundly disappointed when they vote against legislation, as if that's actually going to be anything of a deterrent for them? There's naivety, and then there's whatever this is. Manchin even claims that there are 7 brave Republicans who vote for what's right regardless of the consequences. First of all, what 7 brave Republicans are those? As far as the January 6th Commission goes, there were 6 defections, not 7, and that was to investigate an attack on their own lives. You'd be lucky if you can find even a couple of Republicans who will back any legislation that focuses on policy, like the For the People Act or the Voting Rights Act. Need proof of that? There were zero Republicans who backed the American Rescue Plan. Claiming that Republicans are bipartisan just because some of them deign to allow an investigation to move forward against a literal insurrection at the Capitol isn't exactly the bar here. And second of all, even though 7 Republicans isn't enough, by invoking 7 Republicans, which again, you will rarely reach on any legislation, he's basically saying that his goal is to get just enough bipartisanship for that legislation to fail anyway. We don't need 7 Republicans, we need 10 Republicans, and at no point, for anything that matters, are we going to get 10 Republicans to cross party lines, because at their core, they do not want bipartisanship. They want Democrats to fail so they can run on Democrats having failed and then take power for themselves. That is the first, second, and third priority of the Republican Party, and they broadcast it shamelessly on a daily basis. He then goes on to say this.
I'm just hoping they are able to rise to the occasion to defend our country and support our country and make sure that we have a democracy for this republic.
That he's hoping Republicans will rise to the occasion to defend our country and make sure we have a democracy, which would make sense if the people he was talking about weren't quite literally the same people trying to destroy it. We're not some unified government all fighting against some common enemy like Al-Qaeda here. The issue at hand is that Republicans are currently, as we speak, in the process of undermining democracy. There are 389 voter suppression bills in 48 states. The people authoring and passing those bills undermining the democratic process are the same people who Joe Manchin thinks are going to work together with Democrats to somehow also protect democracy. There is an inherent impossibility to his logic. But truly, the most nonsensical part of all of this, when Chris Wallace asks him if he's being naive about bipartisan cooperation, given the fact that McConnell has literally come out and said that his sole priority is blocking the Democrats' agenda, to which Manchin says this.
I'm not being naive. I think he's 100% wrong in trying to block all the good things that we're trying to do for America.
I'm not being naive. I just think McConnell's wrong in trying to block everything. I mean, there is some Olympic-level cognitive dissonance at play here. In the same sentence, he says he's not naive in thinking Republicans want bipartisanship, and also that he thinks it's wrong that the Republicans are not being bipartisan. It truly doesn't make any sense. If you admit that Republicans are wrong because they're blocking everything Democrats do, then you can't also say that Republicans want bipartisanship. And beyond that, suggesting that they want bipartisanship in response to a question by Chris Wallace where he invokes the January 6th Commission that was literally filibustered by Republicans even further underscores his backwards logic. So either Joe Manchin is lying about being naive, or he's too naive to even recognize his naivety. The simple fact is that whether or not Joe Manchin wants to acknowledge it, it's his actions almost unilaterally that are stopping bipartisanship from happening. All he's doing with his misguided strategy of taking away the Democrats' leverage of filibuster reform is giving Republicans the green light to obstruct the Democrats' entire agenda with impunity. And seeing how they're suppressing votes and gerrymandering states and penalizing elections workers and validating the big lie and still opting to do nothing only renders him complicit in their behavior. With our country on the line, history will remember where Joe Manchin stood. And it won't be on the side of protecting our government, it won't be on the side of bipartisanship, it won't be on the side of defending our institutions, it'll be for disarming the one party, his party, that still cares about democracy. To see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. And for a deeper dive, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I discuss the week's top stories and interview major players in the world of politics, like Vice President Kamala Harris, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.